Kenya about 7 years ago with my family. And so as we moved with the little kids, I was just thinking of what I'm going to do in Kenya. I'm a pharmacist by profession. My husband and I had a pharmacy, retail and wholesale in Wales. But when we moved here, we really didn't know what we were going to do. So as I was waiting to register as a pharmacist, as I was waiting to just find where my work would lie, I started working with Wanny's group, voluntary group, Moving Cultures and Culture Stopovers. I loved what they did. They used to empower people through arts, through different media, through so many various ways. So I followed some of the artists. I followed Wanny wherever I could, whenever I could, within the slums of Kenya, with different communities, and just, trying to help with yoga. I'm also a yoga instructor and a dance instructor. So I started helping with yoga, mindfulness, meditation. And each and every time Wanny would come also and share energy, share her thoughts, share her, platform with different artists. So I do remember one time I was at a gathering with Wanny, organized by Wanny and some of the artists, international artists. And I was new in Kenya, so, I was still processing what goes on around. And I said, you know what, this is a different country in many ways. There's so much inequality in terms of financial inequality, so much poverty around, so many social issues, and so many discrepancies where you go, corruption, etc. And Wanny just looked at me and very calmly, straight in the eyes, looked at me and said, you know what, Madhvi, instead of complaining, do something about it. And that's when I thought, wow, I should do something about it. And so I kept on doing whatever I could if I had time. When I had time, going to the slums, still working with the population and seeing where I could help the kids at that time, or single mums. And when Wanny left, it was a huge loss, just internally, we many of us, not just me, many of us thought, how do we carry on what she was doing? How do we carry on where she was headed, and how she was actually building the blocks for all of us and all the communities to actually become more self-sufficient and help themselves, have different tools to bring them out of poverty, help them mindfulness, etc. So anyway, I carried on going to some of the places that Wanny had introduced me to and kept on working. And after over a year and a half, or maybe even 2 years, I came really what I call face-to-face with period poverty. So I hadn't heard of it. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know why it was. So, I just found out slowly, because I had then got a rapport with some of the girls in school, that they were missing school, not because they were sick, but actually because of their periods. And I thought, well, what do you mean periods? What is the challenge here? So I decided to travel Kenya a little bit to find out what the problem was, how big the problem was, why there was a problem. Where I came from in Wales, even my husband would go to the supermarket and buy me a pack of pads, and I didn't really overthink that. So as I was roaming and talking to people and documenting, I remember there was a place in one of the slums in Nairobi where I was documenting, and we had a lot of girls in the orphanage, which we were ready to film. And one of the girls actually shared a very personal and almost heartbreaking story in my perspective. She was saying that she gets her pads from here. And I said, what do you mean here in the orphanage? They barely have enough funds to make, get hot food for all the children. It was very humble home. So she said, from here. And I said, what do you mean? And because she was talking Swahili, it took me some time to understand that she was actually saying that, she has to sleep with maybe the teacher, maybe somebody in the community. And as she was talking me through this, I remember how I was feeling, but then I realized that she goes through this month on month. And so she ended the conversation by saying, depending on the quality, I get 1 or 2 packs. So that was a reality for her. We did ask her, with child protection, can we rescue you from here, etc. And her answer was no, because she was feeling safe. Putting that in perspective, especially where I was coming from, my personal journey, I had moved from the West, coming to Kenya, I didn't know where to do, what to do. I was feeling a little bit frustrated, and this just put everything into perspective in my mind, saying that, there is privilege and then there is something which is realistic. So if this is reality for some girls, why is her world so different to mine in many ways, in terms of dignity, which is for first and foremost, and also just other little things, which we just don't even think about, we take for granted. And again, Wanny's words rang in my ears saying, do something about it, do something about it. So I started to really think about this deeply, and as more and more I documented, I was in Lamu for the Lamu Yoga Festival, and some friends were talking about reusable sanitary pads, and I was wondering what they were, and I said, would you mind if I implement this in all the schools that we used to go to? And I had this this ideal situation that I'd go to Nairobi, tell my friends about it, and then we'd go to all the schools that we could and just teach boys and girls how to make one pad so that they could make enough for themselves or for their moms, etc. We did do that for a while. We'd cut cloth at home, take needles, threads, everything, the pattern, we'd take it to school. We showed kids how to make this one pad, and that did work well in many ways, but actually we did not carry on with it because we found that there was just not enough time for the kids, with curriculum being so demanding, and also I was more concerned about the hygiene. So I started working with the mums or women in the community who may not have much to do, started training them, and again we tried that in several places. If there was challenge of sewing machines, we would give them some second-hand ones, and that didn't work out too well either, because as soon as I left the program, so to speak, I was finding that material was being compromised, or the quality of the product, the absorbency, the hygiene, etc. And as much as I had this idea that the women, if I train them, they would make their own or make enough for the community, make some money, sell these pads and become self-sufficient, it didn't really work out that well, because at the end of the day, my how I was thinking was also from a scientific point of view. I needed to make sure that we're maintaining hygiene. So I didn't want to end up or cause more issues than we started with. Girls sometimes in Kenya, they use different really wonderful things like mattresses or even leaves. There's a place near in Tarakaniti where girls actually combat, or they fight with goats for leaves because it's such a dry, arid area. Ash, cow dung, etc. So I did, the fact that I was looking at it from, infections, we want to avoid this, what is causing these secondary infections. So I didn't really want to end up with a bigger problem than what we started. So we started thinking deeper into this. And as I moved more and more around, learning more and more about period poverty, especially in Kenya, finding out the statistics, before COVID, it was 65% of girls and women in Kenya cannot afford pads. And the girls miss 4.9 days a month of school, which is basically a quarter of the curriculum. So already, if you have the privilege as a girl to be in secondary school, and if you miss a quarter of the curriculum, already your path is carved differently to somebody who would have full access to the curriculum all the time, their peers, boys. So, my mission started with this idea that, we want to avoid transactional sex. We want to avoid girls missing school just because of their period. We want to keep the dignity. We want to make sure we have something which is economical or sustainable. I also wanted to make sure it's environmentally friendly. So I started really thinking about how I would do this, because this was not my background, but with more and more talks around what people wanted, we got so many testimonials, and what girls really thought about reusable sanitary pads, with so much feedback. For example, if they have to hang it outside, they feel shy, so we made them a little bit more funky. We added some kitenge so that they could, feel like it's a garment and not be ashamed of it, and so many different things, the sizes, the absorbency, the material, the breathability, the pH, everything. We kind of compiled. We also had a little pilot scheme in one of the Western countries for 50 girls in school to see how they thought of, this reusable pad kit that we were giving them, and the feedback that they gave us. We kind of compiled it all and made a kit. So this kit now is very much the same kit that we want to be able to say that, yes, this is the one which goes to the slum kid in Nairobi, which is the same one we want to export to the UK, for example, because at the end of the day, it's about dignity. And so my dignity is the same as anyone else's. And we want to maintain that, that kind of dialogue in the head that, this at the end of the day is not a privilege. It is what we need as women or girls. So now we have a brand, PadMad. I'm working with the standards in Kenya to work, on advising on what we actually would need to be reusable, what we would need to make sure that girls and women who use them maintain hygiene and all these various technical things. I do remember that when I was at one of Wanny's partners, we were just talking about period poverty, and when I was still developing this and collating all the data and information, I was in the car with a social worker and I was feeling very overwhelmed. And I said, the problem is just too big, and it's not just Kenya now; it's almost global. What does one do? And he shared the story, which I'm sure many people have heard, that there was a kid walking down the beach one way, and then there was an old man walking the other way, and the kid kept bending down, picking something up. And as the father, or as the old man approached the little chap, he said, "What are you doing, my son?" And he said, "I'm just saving all these starfish." And the old man said, "Oh, but there's, thousands on the beach. How are you going to do it?" So the little boy just bent down, picked one, put him into the water and said, "Well, all I know is I've saved this one." So with that idea in my head, without being overwhelmed, without getting really personally affected by so many stories, which, tragic. There was one which was highlighted by the media about almost 2 years ago, that a girl had stained her clothes somewhere in Bomet in school, and at 9 o'clock or so in the morning, the teacher shamed her. And so she went home, and when her mum came home from work, she found the girl had hung herself. So basically, this girl just couldn't deal with the shame, and she took her life. And that just happens to be one of the stories which the media caught hold of and portrayed and brought awareness. But there are many stories. I work with street women here in Eldoret, and there's one woman who said that she basically has to she goes to the trash, uses other women's used disposable pads, just so that she can go to work for about an hour or two, get some money, etc. Like I said, transactional sex is pretty much happening. And also, there are so many personal stories which girls and women have shared, which really just make me question that how come they have to go through this? Accessibility is one, affordability is another. So when we made the reusable kit, we want it to last at least through the secondary and tertiary education. So we don't want the girls to have to go through various other means to just get a pack of pads just for protection, or just use rags or blankets, or be ashamed. And also we want to make sure that these girls are healthy, no secondary infections are happening. The other thing we have to and I consciously want to consider and have made it, quite a priority is the environmental responsibility for us to realize what goes on in disposable tampons and pads, what they're made of. They're made of plastic. They biodegrade, or they after 500 to 800 years for one pad to decompose. In what we're looking at, if we're looking at a school, maybe in the rural area here, that kid, if she's given a disposable pad, is going to go down the pit latrine, and then the other kids, is not going to be long before the wash system gets clogged. Or if you're living in Kibera, you don't really have disposable things going on here, because where do you dispose? You chuck it over, or it ends up in the river, or it ends up in, clogging the drains. And with the amount of population, you really don't want to encourage this. Same thing with the refugee camps. And frankly, even if you can dispose of it responsibly, are we doing any favors to the environment? We really need to start thinking about more sustainable, biodegradable, eco-friendly alternatives. So I've made it my priority to think about that when I was making this kit, and to also educate boys and girls on menstrual health. So, what does menstrual health look like? This is what it looks like in textbooks, but what is actually practically, what does it look like? When do we ask for help, or when do we start speaking to peers? Or, what does sexual rights look like? What is your right as a girl or as a woman? Also to boys, what are the rights that we have to remember? And, if there's this scenario happening, what is a protocol in Kenya? How do we deal with different scenarios? So we play role plays, we educate about infections, we educate about hygiene. And that conversation, the idea is that once I've had that conversation or workshop for about 1 or 2 hours with the boys and girls, we just hope that when I leave from there, at least there's a safe space now for peer-to-peer conversations to happen, for healthy conversations that, they can ask their teachers to see if there is something that they need to seek medical help. Otherwise, the quiet dialogue really doesn't help anyone, because there may be some trouble, if they have an irregular period. In fact, what does an irregular period look like? Or when do we need to know that we are looking at something like, urinary tract infection or reproductive tract infection? When are we also talking about, for boys, what does puberty look like, and how do we approach this with their peers, with the girls? And, if there is a scene like the girl stains her clothes in class, what are the boys going to do? What do the girls want the boys to do? All these kind of scenarios that we talk about, so that once I leave, at least they feel safe enough to carry on those conversations and know, to break the taboo of menstruation, because at the end of the day, we want to try and learn to help the girls celebrate rather than just be very, very stressed out about this. For various reasons, they would be stressed out because of they can't have sanitary wear, or they don't know if they're healthy, or, the first time the girls have periods, some of them say that, they're going to die because they just don't know what's happening, and they're bleeding and they don't know how to stop it, etc. So just those conversations, I feel have been our powerful tool for PadMad to be successful. And I think overall, we all need to start having these conversations in all our households, to speak about health and to speak about hygiene and to speak about menstrual health. And this will only help the next generations to come, to see what are their choices, what products can girls use, what can they contribute. If you are in Kenya, for example, I'm just talking about Kenya because I'm here at the moment, but if you're in Kenya, how can you help girls who are the same age and who may not be able to have so many resources or so much privilege just to have clean sanitary wear? How can you help? What can you do? What solutions can you find? And is it linked to anything else? For example, if you have if you're talking about period poverty, is it linked to, for example, FGM, or is it linked to sexual health? In Kenya, condoms are free, pads are not. What do you feel about that? Are you working with policymakers, etc.? So just all these conversations, I want people just to start talking about, to acknowledge what is out there, to realize that this is a problem. It is a global problem. There are many SDGs about this, gender equality, etc. So what are we as a community, as a whole, holistically, what are we doing to help each other? And it's not just about a product, it's about environment, it's about economical decisions we're making. So what are we all doing to, the mission being to eradicate period poverty, to make sure that each and every girl has the dignity to follow through. So that's what my aim is. In terms of challenges, frankly, I can't say I've had great big challenges. There is some kind of education which needs to be emphasized. So many donors or many people in the health office, etc., say, oh, but Kenya has no water, so how can we have anything reusable and maintain hygiene? So those kind of conversations which are active, we try and break it down. So what do you mean by water issues? Is it the source of water? Is it dirty water? Is it, what is the issue? And is this issue big enough to discard something like anything reusable? Because, if you're using, so we talk about volume of water, which we need to maintain hygiene of one pad. So, basically in layman's terms, maybe if you can wash underwear, you can probably wash a pad just as well. So we start having these conversations, the cost of soap, if it costs 5 shillings a month, is it more affordable or less affordable? So having these conversations with people who are consumer-led, educating girls out there, do you know what is in a disposable pad or disposable anything for that matter? And the choices you're making, let them be conscious about the choices they make. We also want to remember to if the challenge is, for me, basically the challenge is to encourage people to talk about it. The only reason is because I'm not really that great on social media, and I don't really have the marketing tools within my own self. However, I love being on the ground and doing what I do, speak to girls, etc. But if I could have young girls and women from all over the world just speaking about this and bringing awareness about the actual problem that we may not be facing, but maybe our neighbors or just people down the street may be facing, and that just helps different minds come together and bring about a solution. I just thought about one solution, maybe there's plenty of, and there are people, working on this platform for various things, and they're doing good things. Everybody's doing something good, but if the larger institutes can also come on board and bring us all under one umbrella, we all work together, I think that would be a good solution. In terms of other challenges, I've had great experience with the government of Kenya, who are really understanding in many ways that there is a problem, we need to do something about it. These are the various solutions, and maybe we can give the public a choice. So I think all in all, we're in a good place right now. I just ask people to talk about this. If they wish, they want to support, they can always donate, and we give out pad kits, we educate, everything else is free. We just ask for donation for the pad kit, which is obviously for resources and labor, and we carry on. And then we have a website, it's www.padmadkenya.com. You can have a look at what we do. We have great partners. Wanny is one of them who endorse what we do. We have Eliud Kipchoge. We have UNICEF, who've done films for us, documentaries. We have some big other celebrity personalities who've helped us just to give us some confidence in what we're doing and to spread the word. Everybody can do anything. If you can't donate money, you can start a conversation or at least reach out and, you know, understand the problem a little bit more through me or through the website or through social media. And at least we can get something escalating from here. I hope that's okay, Wanny.
Madhvi, perfect. But I know that 30 minutes with you is not enough time to really talk about all the work you have been doing related to period poverty erasing. Yeah, because you're trying to erase that situation out of your cultural context that at the moment is Kenya. I think this is a good moment also to talk, Madhvi, about how the new generation see this initiative of PadMad, what they have told you about it.
Okay, so I'll talk about both. I'll talk about girls in, so there's various things. So we have to talk about culture, geography, we have to talk about even the weather because these are, you know, wash and dry ones. We also have to talk about accessibility, etc. So I'll take you step by step. For example, if you're going to a kid in Samburu, and we want to give them the pad kits. So culturally, you need to educate them how to use. Remember, Samburu, there's very little water, but it's dry. So there's an advantage of drying the pads quickly. And so what are you going to give them? So we have this kit now that I was telling you about. So we have to consider that there's not enough water. We have to consider the girls in the UK, which we had the pilot scheme, they prefer to wear tighter clothes. So you want to give them not such heavy pads, but you want to give them more of the lighter pads so that they can carry on wearing the tighter clothes. We want to give them a bag where they can store their clothes, store their pads here. Because in Kenya, I assume that they don't have access to clean water in a toilet in school and they can wash and dry. So we have to assume that they're going to go home or wherever they go at the end of the day and then wash. So we have to give them a reusable sanitary bag where they put their soil pads in. We also have to assume that you may be giving them out in Kakamega where it rains a lot. So maybe give them more pad kits or maybe give them lighter pads so that they wash and dry easier. We also have to take into consideration girls who have heavy flow. Now, so heavy, what does heavy mean? Because mostly when you ask girls in Kenya, they just all think they have heavy flow. So we try and define what is heavy, how often you need to change a pad. And we also have to consider girls who have long flows. So long meaning instead of 3 to 5 days, they may be lasting for 10 to 12 days. So in all that consideration, we take in a kit and now we have 4 things in a kit. So one is a large pad, which is for nighttime, but obviously you can wear it for heavy flow. Then there's a daytime pad. Then there's a holder for lighter time, and there's liners. Liners are actually just for hygiene. They can be also off the cycle. So just to maintain hygiene, because it's a breathable material, we want to make sure that they're not going to get candida infections or even UTIs actually. So we also include liners in there. So the idea is that in this kit, if the kid is educated on how to use it in different combinations, you know, if you're going for a 3-hour exam for KCP and it happens to be your first day and you're bleeding very heavily, what is your solution if you have reusable sanitary pads? So we teach them how. Or if you have a party to go to and you're not bleeding that much, but you're bleeding a little bit, what would you wear? So we combine all that education, we combine that whole thing in the kit, which comes in this kit, and we teach them the various ways. And obviously at the end of the day, they can figure it out themselves. But we teach them through practical role play. This is where you're going. This is how would you wear it? Or if you're a mom going to the market, maybe for 5 hours, you can't access anything anywhere private. What would you need to wear if it's your day 1, day 5, etc.
Madhvi, I see that you wear a t-shirt when you go to the field that say "Bleed with Pride." Is that the slogan? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And tell me a little bit about the emotional and also psychological approach to deal with menstruation, because you know there is a lot of stigma with the period.
Yeah, so the Bleed with Pride is a result of many stories which I came across and still come across, is culturally, menstruation is still a taboo in many cultures. I'm not just talking about Kenya, I'm not talking about geographically. Menstruation is a taboo. You know, there's various conversations which are not happening, which should be happening. And so when I started this whole thing, you know, my idea was, oh, let me find a solution so they don't go into prostitution, so that they can go to school, so that they have access, they don't have to go begging, etc., etc. When I came right to you know, collating all this, I realized that the whole thing starts with dignity. And so, you know, for example, there's one interview I had, and the girl, she used to give sexual favors to somebody in the community, to a woman, just because the woman had money and would give her money and would be able to pay for her sanitary pads. So, you know, this is how dignity really trickles down through the whole ladder of, you know, accessibility, affordability, whatever you want to call it. But at the end of the day, we have to start speaking to girls, especially young girls, and, you know, our mums who probably didn't talk about it, that this is something which is natural. You know, some animals also go through it. This is a process with, you know, there's a funny story I'd love to add, and I think this is a good time to do it. So when a girl hangs the pad kit after she's washed it, she hangs it on the line. Many girls have this thing that, you know, we're ashamed, we don't want to really hang it, and well, what are the solutions? And there are solutions that you don't have to hang it in full view of somebody else or something. But, you know, in the slums, when they all live together, their main concern is how do we hang it without causing this attention. And I play the scenario with them saying, okay, you know, you hung it outside, maybe your neighbor or your uncle comes along and say, you know, take it out from here, this is dirty and this is gross, and, you know, this is basically a dirty thing, move it from here. I tell the girls to say that, you know, the reason why he is on this planet is because his mom menstruated. So the problem is not the girls, it's just his. If he has a problem, he has to deal with that. So basically, just for these empowering conversations to happen, that, you know, for the girls to realize that they don't have to feel bad, they don't have to make excuses for their menstruation. You know, it's a natural process. It is something to be proud of. You know, I work with Eliud Kipchoge, and Kipchoge always says that what men can do, girls can do better because they have a womb. You know, because they have a womb, that's their power. That literally is what they can encash on, is the power of the womb. So it's nothing to be afraid of. It's nothing to be quiet about. It's something to celebrate. So that is why I say bleed with pride, is because we need to really have these empowering, positive period conversations, and you know, and just to make sure that the girls are feeling good even on their period.
Madhvi, are you already working with the primary school students, like primary?
Yeah.
Are they the ones who are actually learning from early age to be
From 9.
proud of it, from 9 o'clock? So what is their response? How do they react?
No, so from 9 years, so Wanny, whenever I go to school, I ask for the boys to be there. Always, about 99%, there'll be resistance from the head teacher saying that, no, the boys won't be there because they don't even do science together, for example. But I make sure that the boys are there. So, you know, we have to make sure that this is happening. It's my job to make everyone comfortable. So the conversations are really, really, really fruitful if the boys are there, because suddenly there's some light which is shed on something which nobody talks about. So they have the most most questions. And once these questions are asked, and, you know, that question may be relative to somebody else, and once these conversations happen, you know, at the end of the day, the girls, and then I always end with your affirmation is, you know, I love myself, etc. So those workshops have been very, very, actually have been my power. Have been our success as PadMad generally is the workshops. Yeah.
So the workshop are empowering you and are empowering your beneficiaries at the same time. So
the workshop empowering me first, I think, for various reasons, for many things. Yes, I learn, but also for me to realize that the level of privilege where I come from, And more than that is also to just get a perspective on global, you know, so what are we doing? What is happening here?
Okay. Madhvi, just to close our 30 minutes conversation, what message are you giving to the global society regarding PadMad? And can you please show them the packaging and one of the sanitary pads that you have over there? Yeah.
Yeah, so this is our brand, it's PadMad. It has some directions. It has a QR code here, which zaps into a video of how to wash. And so, like I told you, our main aim is to make sure that we are working with period poverty. This is what one of the small daytime pads looks like. Every pad more or less looks different because of we try and make it funky. You know, we use different designs of the pad. For example, you know, the cover would be different. And I'll just show you another one. This is a large daytime pad, I mean a nighttime pad. So this is what they look like, longer, heavier, etc. So my final word would be, well, first of all, I need to thank you, Wanny, for really putting me on this track forever. I'll be grateful. I would just like to say that, you know, it doesn't have to be period poverty that people acknowledge or talk about. Although if that is what they want to, because it is a huge problem, because it is something that really, you know, in 2021 does not need to be something that we're still talking about and solving. I think, you know, if somebody wants to support this, they definitely can through monetary or through conversations or just getting in touch. But even if it's not period poverty, if you just look around you, wherever you are, even in the first world, even in Kenya, Malawi, wherever you are, I would urge people to come out of their bubbles, you know, and just see, in times of COVID, everyone is going through something. And so if there is somewhere, you know, where you can help, it does not have to be monetary. It can just be help in any way or form. You could maybe help get some resources or have a conversation or just give them, you know, some strength somehow. I think, you know, a little way can go a large way. I started this with no intention of being where I am, you know, but I think this has been very successful. I'm feeling proud that, you know, I am where I am. And that's just because I had a small urge to do something about it. And because Wanny pushed me, you know, because she happened to be there at the right time, saying the right things. And it, you know, I understood what I had to do. So now I am here and I'm doing what I do, but I believe that everyone can do something.
Madhvi, you are a real inspiration. And you know that from the very, very beginning when I met you, Nicolina was visiting Kenya, yeah. And you heard there was another dancer. When you find out the moving culture was also aligned with your vision and also with what you used to do in Wales, you know, it was not different at all. And then I was so moved and I was so happy that somebody so passionate like you called me and contacted me. And I told you, Madhvi, at the moment is not the opportunity, but definitely we need to meet. We need to do things together. There are other activities taking place. And from day one till now that we connect again after almost 3 years, I still feel that love, that commitment, that enthusiasm. And that you're one of those persons that, like myself, we don't take a no for an answer. Isn't it?
Well, you were emailing me back at 1 o'clock, if you remember, 1 in the morning.
And the same with you. You have that energy, that passion, but it's always, like we said, important to look after ourselves. I know that you continue with your yoga practice, sharing your love and energy to the universe, to your family. And I think we have to keep caring about ourselves. Like we say with our mantra, we love ourselves, we are powerful, we can give, we can receive, and we can have a big heart to change. Yes. So Madhvi, you know, I love you very much. And I keep you always on my heart and my prayers. And thank you so much for sharing with the global community your message of ending period poverty, of ending a closed mind setting, you know, about something that is so natural and that we have to cherish and we also have to look after in the proper way. Thank you so much. After you, we have another guest who is from Spain, at the moment based in Mexico. She is Bea Pedro Viejo, and she is a music therapist, violin player, and social cultural entrepreneur, one of the founders of Redomi, Red de Organizaciones Músicos Sociales, Da la Nota. You have the opportunity to meet Aldara and all the volunteers who came to Kenya from Spain in 2017. So Bea was one of the masterminds behind this initiative. She was not in Kenya, but she's going to share with us at 10 o'clock Bangkok, 10 a.m. in Mexico, 5 p.m. in Spain. She's going to be with us after Madhvi, sharing her journey on how music can transform communities and transform each one of us. Madhvi, musical kisses.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Annie. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
And I'll see you later, okay? Bye.
Okay, bye. Bye.